You can't pour from an empty cup. If you are so stretched to the limit that you don't have an ounce left in you, you better figure that out. Like, get that shit dialed in. You're obviously spending way too much on all this other shit and not investing in the relationships that are ultimately the most important to you. I promise on your deathbed, you're not going to say, oh, I'm so glad I worked 40 hours of overtime every week and we had that amazing boat and I worked all the time. Like, you're never going to say that.
Hey guys, don't forget to check out the Street Cop Training Conference, April 23rd through the 28th, 2023 at the Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center. It's going to be a great experience. 5 career-changing days, some of the most profound speakers in the industry. Guest speakers include Rob O'Neill, the guy who killed Bin Laden, Kyle Carpenter, the youngest living Congressional Medal of Honor winner, Fox News host Tommy Lahren, Navy SEAL American war hero Jason Redman, Sheriff David Clark, Sheriff Mark Lamb, and Sheriff Wayne Ivey. You'll also spend time with all of our Street Cop instructors at this event Monday through Friday. We'll have a great lineup of courses in addition to our great speakers. It will be a week that you will not forget. You'll be thankful you came. You don't want to miss out. Check out streetcop.com on how to register. If you're going to use the room code, make sure you book it from Sunday through Friday. That's what the code's good for, and it's about half the price of the regular rate. But those rooms are running out, so make sure you sign up now. We'll see you there.
Be a street cop.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Street Cop Training Podcast. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Street Cop Training. My name is Dennis Benino, and today I have with me the cop shrink, Deana. Just kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
We've been
I knew it was
this.
Deana. Can we just agree that? Can you submit that I knew it was Deana? I'm just
yes, you absolutely did. Absolutely did. But that
Deana
was a good
Kahle.
one. Mm-hmm.
Deana, tell us who you are, what you've done, what brings you here today, your Instagram, how I found you, all that shit.
Yeah, well, I don't know any of that backstory of how you found me and why I'm here today, other than you asked me to be here, and I'm honored to do so. So yeah, I am a cop shrink. I'm a native Southern Californian, older than dirt.
This
is my third and final career. This is what I always wanted to do and be when I grew up. Watching Lethal Weapon in the movie theater. I'm that old. I said, that's what I want to do. That chick that kept trying to get Griggs to come in her office and talk to her, the law enforcement therapist, the psychologist, right? I was like, that's what I want to do. And, series of life and events and different things that I did in my careers, and finally got an opportunity to do that. I've been in this role for about 11 years now, a little over 11 years. So I do 3 different things. I work for I contract with a really large company that contracts with about 100 different agencies, first responder agencies, city, state, federal. And so I get the opportunity to travel all over the country, providing critical incident stress management, following, mass casualties, lethal force encounters, fires, you name it. I get to do quite a bit of teaching. I am an AICC post instructor. So I teach at police academies, sheriff's academies, different police department, fire agencies. And I see clients in my office as well.
Let's go back a little bit to earlier in life. You graduate high school, you go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go right into the field?
Well, let's rewind all the way back. My grandfather was the chief of police of the city that I was born in. And so he would come home on his lunch, in his take-home car and his super pressed uniform. And I still remember as vivid as today, the sound of his creaky gun belt and the slick pomade in his hair. And he had taps on his shoes. Like, dude was legit. And I just worshiped the man. And he was very decorated. He was a World War II veteran and started with the LA County Sheriff's Department right out of World War II. He was a very young sergeant, a very young promoted sergeant, and then moved on over to the small city I was raised in and was the chief there. And I worshiped the man. Everything about him screamed gentleman and handsome and all of these things. So when you fast forward many years later, and I told my mom that I was going to marry a cop, she burst into tears and said, "Don't do it. It's the worst mistake of your life. You don't want this life." And I was so confused. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. Like, are you saying grandpa's not the amazing man that I always knew him to be? And she said, well, my experience was just very different. And, that I understand now. I understand now because I get these children in my office of law enforcement officers that tell me how much they don't have a relationship with their dad, or how they think their dad is mad all the time, or he's very, aggressive at home, not physically necessarily, but I know what goes on behind the scenes. Not only did I live it, living with my own law enforcement officer, but seeing hundreds and hundreds of clients telling me, guys will come to me and say, my kids think I'm always mad at them. I have, I just look mad, but I'm not mad. Or my kids wonder why I don't laugh and play with them anymore. I don't have it in me. I don't have the joy anymore. I don't have the energy. So I lived all that. I experienced all that.
Did you marry a cop?
I did.
Did you unmarry a cop?
I did. Listen to your mother. Your mothers are always right. But that's the cliche, right? Listen to your mother. No, we did divorce after 13 years. I have no disparaging words, to be honest with you. I really don't. We're fantastic co-parents. We're raising a beautiful daughter who's a senior now. And he became a veterinarian and made buckets of money. And
wait, so he was a cop?
Yeah.
Left police work?
Yeah.
Or retired?
He left. Yeah. He left actually to go to medical school. And, it's kind of the defining moment for him was when he got injured on the job. He took an asp right above the knee. And thankfully it was above the knee, not on the knee. And it was that moment he's like, these bad guys are not getting any younger. I mean, not getting any older. I'm getting older. These bad guys are not. And he's like, I don't know that I can keep doing this. But that was his like childhood dream, was to be a veterinarian. And he defaulted to be a cop. He's like, I guess I'll go to the police academy.
Why do you think he did that?
Went to the police academy instead of following his dreams.
Yeah.
It was easier.
Parents had influence on that. Was parents scaring him?
Maybe, I don't know. He was a pretty independent thinker, but I think like most people, they see the 10 years of school and they go, oh God, I don't want to be in school for the next 10 years. Like I want to get a job and make some money.
So you married this cop. When did you become a therapist?
I became a therapist after he finished school. So it was in 2009 is when I went back to graduate school. I started I went to college right out of high school and got my 4-year degree, but then, life took its turns and I did some other things. And I went back to graduate school and finished in 2009.
And then that's when you started practicing therapy.
Yeah. In 2011 is when I actually started. I joined the big company that was doing all the cool shit I wanted to do, which is work with cops primarily.
What did you do in the interim between graduating high school in 2009?
In college, I worked in a psychiatric hospital, legit psychiatric hospital. And I loved it. I had great experience, learned a lot about mental illness. And, but then I saw these like fancy ladies coming in with like their fancy clothes and bringing us lunch. And I was like, what do you do? Cause I'm schlepping around here bringing my lunch. And they said pharmaceutical sales. So I dove down that road and I did that for, 5-7 years. And then I opened my own business. And
wait, okay, let's go. Did you like pharmaceutical sales?
No, I absolutely hated every minute of it. I felt like a prostitute. Worth it? I mean, I worth it. Yeah, the money was amazing, but it's called golden handcuffs for a reason. Like you're treated very, very well. The money is insane, but you're in handcuffs and you feel like a prostitute. It's awful. I hated it. So then fitness had always been my life. Fitness and nutrition was a really big, important piece of life to me. And I opened a couple of women's gyms and it was a fantastic ride. I learned that being a gym owner is very different than going to a gym, because I got in the worst shape of my life being a gym owner. And I'll never forget when a client said to me, like, she looked at me and she's like, you're gaining weight. She goes, "You're not a very good representative of what you're trying to sell." And I was like, it was so hard to hear, but she was right. And I realized, wow, I'm working too much and not putting my health first. This will become a theme in my life, not putting myself first or my health first or what I need first. I put everyone else's needs first at the expense of myself. And so then after those businesses did amazing and I sold them and stayed home for a few years, raising my kids, put my ex through college. I went back to school and then I dove into this career.
So you can definitely afford a Logitech Brio. Yeah. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
If I worked more, it's funny. I have a colleague who always looks at me and says, "Really, you're going home already?" But here's the thing. I burned myself out so badly as an intern. I was an intern for a long time, just because of circumstances. I was single and then some really bad shit happened in my life. And I wasn't making any money for 6 of these 11 years. And so I fried myself, absolutely burned to a crisp. And so since then, I've really put my own mental health and physical health as a priority. So because of that, I work a lot less than I used to. So my colleagues will tease me and say, "Oh, it must be nice to work 4 hours a day." I'm like, my mental health is way more important than money, my friend.
Why did you get into this field? I mean, I know your grandfather was the cop, your husband was the cop, but what was that triggering event where you're like, all right, were you experiencing it? You realized you could help, you were seeing his coworkers. What was it?
Honestly, I go back to that Lethal Weapon moment, and it was 1987 and I was sitting in the movie theater. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a compilation of, my experience, watching my grandfather in law enforcement and going to the police picnics. And I don't know, it didn't click for me until watching Lethal Weapon. I watched this woman have so much compassion and also some fire in her, like, "Get your ass in here, like, you need to talk to me." And I am both. I am that hard ass that says, "Suck it the fuck up, come in here and talk to me." And I'm also that I can have compassion and acknowledge the struggle you're going through, and while saving your pride,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm guessing trying to emphasize some respect towards your clients, and I imagine 100%. Cops can sniff bullshit a lot and you got to work with that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, there is no bullshit when you're completely genuine and authentic. Like, I have no airs. I have nothing to hide. I have no hidden agenda. I genuinely want to alleviate suffering. 100%. That's my goal.
All right, let's go into what you kind of started with, was relationships with children. You said earlier that it's very common for police officers to have these not great relationships with their children. Mm-hmm. What causes that? Let's explore that. So go ahead.
The job, 100%. So here's the thing, when you're running and gunning, it feels really, really good. You get this high, your adrenaline is super high. You're working in the ultra high, sympathetic nervous system zone. And that feels really energizing. It's very draining, but it's also very energizing. It's like, 200 miles an hour, around the NASCAR track for years and years and years. And the contrast of that, this high alert, hypervigilant, head on a swivel, exciting, the contrast of that is home, where it's quiet and peaceful and mundane and boring, maybe. But also you add in the fact that your nervous system is freaking tired, you're exhausted, and you come home and you have nothing left. So now life feels dull and low energy, and you're exhausted and irritable. And it's just a really common toggle. So now you have to be on this high performance, like, I've got to, pull it together and show up and do the best I can in the community or whatever role you're in law enforcement. And then you come home and just tank and you're exhausted. And it's more than resting. It's like shutdown, complete shutdown, because your nervous system is tired. So
you come home, your kids want to see you. They're excited to see you. They're not recognizing that. They just don't want to be bothered. You know, it comes back to this theory of like, we treat the ones who love us the most the worst. Yeah. Why is that?
Because we don't put their needs and the relationship needs ahead of our own. So we come home and we're like, I just want to, strip down and drink some beers and scream at the football on TV and don't want to be bothered. And you're on this like high edge, and you forget that you have these other relationships that really need you to be showing up right now. And I guess you're less aware of your own behavior. Like you're because I do it too. I fall into it too. And thankfully I have a good enough relationship with my daughter that she's like, she'll say, what is your problem? And I'll say, oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be snapping at you. I'm just tired. I'm so sorry. Forgive me while I'm cranky. And then sometimes I'm able to be like even more cranky, but then she knows it's not about her. It's just about me.
So maybe recognizing that there is a prioritization of your children. So when you come home, what you're saying is acknowledging that, oh my God, I was doing this. Yeah. And now I have to make effort to not do it anymore.
Yeah.
You want to get, listen, yesterday was daunting at my house. I'm not going to lie. It was a daunting day, and I'd never get daunted.
You don't get daunted.
No, it's rare. They got me yesterday. These bastards I got 4. They're very young. Aww. And yeah, it's a blast. Listen, and it got funnier, but there was a moment I was like, what do you want in the other room? Yeah. And I my oldest came over and he's like, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm like, no, it's okay. Nice. But dude, you've been calling my name for 38 minutes. You can make pizza. Go take it out of the freezer. I'm trying to show you to do it. Stop. I'm not going to be here for you. He's like, but I'm hungry. I'm like, I understand. But like, I have 3 other siblings of yours that I have to tell. Everybody's calling my name literally every 4 seconds. Yeah. And that's because their dad's their best friend too. Aww. It's not like they don't want anything to do with me. They want everything to do with me.
Right. Yeah. And at some point you're like, God, why do I have all these kids? And I promise you 10 years from now, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I missed it. I'm not saying you'll miss it. A lot of, I know right. Me, like I'm realizing my kids are grown and leaving me, and I feel like I missed it. And I've been very present. But man, you blink and they're adults and you go, God, I wish I would have embraced the chaos a little bit more. I wish I would have been a little more present. I wish I would have cared a little less about the cleanliness of the house or whatever,
I actually try to, look at some things that I have to do in my house, and there's always something to do and plenty of it. There's no shortage of it. And then I have the business as well. I want to go back to this parenting thing because it is a road that we haven't gone down. And I want police officers to be acknowledging that, they got to keep that in mind. There's got to be an intention when they get back home of, okay, I'm coming home. My children are here. I know I'd be tired, but put yourself in their shoes. Daddy hasn't been seen all day. They admire you. They love you so much. You come home and start being a dick.
Right.
I've been guilty of it. Right. But I have learned to be able to recognize what I'm feeling emotionally and go, all right, you're tired. You had a very long day. We run a big company. If you don't know, you're familiar with some of this stuff. There's a lot of bullshit. Yeah. And you get your fucking butt kicked. The emotional tax that I pay every single day to come in and do this. It's crazy. And sometimes I am drained by the time I get home. And then my kids are little and they want to jump into flips and fight and wrestle. And I just take about 5 seconds and go, all right, I'm a little kid. Their dad just got home. Their dad's the funnest motherfucker in the world 99% of the time.
Right.
And you're an empath. It's so funny to watch your face. Yeah, you empathize so obviously. It's so good. Do people tell you that they can watch your face and know exactly what you're thinking?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I promise you, I have zero poker face, and I can't control the expression on my face. Like I can't.
It's so good. As I'm talking, you're literally following around with facial expressions. You're following me like the Pied Piper, like with your facial expressions. It's really funny. I say about nice things. It's just very interesting. You can't hide it now. You must be a crier, right?
Oh, I totally am. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I have to tell you about
But
a student that made me cry last week teaching at probation. It was devastating, but go ahead.
no, we'll go into that. But where am I missing here? Like, what am I talking about that I'm acknowledging? So give some advice to police officers listening, moms and dads. You're having a tough day at work. What are your kids thinking about? What can they do to develop those relationships and maintain? And don't forget, if you are not showing up for your children in these moments, you're creating long-term damage.
Absolutely. Oh God, I have so much to say on that. But first things first, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you are so stretched to the limit that you don't have an ounce left in you, you better figure that out. Like, get that shit dialed in. You're obviously spending way too much on all this other shit and not investing in the relationships that are ultimately the most important to you. I promise on your deathbed, you're not going to say, oh, I'm so glad I worked 40 hours of overtime every week and we had that amazing boat and we, I worked all the time. Like, you're never going to say that. So first things first is like, quit giving crumbs to your family, quit investing, quit giving crumbs to your own relationship needs and emotional needs, physical needs, all that stuff, because you've given all of your hours everywhere else. And secondly is, when you come in the door, like, take a beat, try to mentally separate the day from now being home. Decompress. If you need 10 minutes to decompress, if you need 20 minutes to decompress, say, I love y'all. So good to see you. I'm going to go hit the shower, get myself squared away, and then I'm going to come down and join you. But I need 20 minutes to get my head straight. It just makes such a difference. Like, my daughter knows I'm not even human until I come in and change my clothes. Like, don't ask me what's for dinner. Don't ask me anything. Wait until I change my clothes. And now I'm sufficiently ready to show up and be mom and leave the day behind. I think too often parents don't set that intention of showing up as the best parent they can or the best spouse they can. Like you said, they come home and everyone gets the worst of them.
With that being said, you talk about this 20-minute time period to digress and decompress. How important is it for us to have a good partner?
Oh gosh, vital. Absolutely vital. It makes all the difference, because do you want a partner on your team, or do you want another adversary or another person that doesn't understand you or your life or the things that you experience? Early in my career, that was the biggest challenge I kept running up against. The wife would drag in the proverbial husband, which was the cop or the firefighter, but primarily cops in the beginning, and say, he's a jerk and he's not showing up for the kids. And, I need help here. And the rest of the session was all me giving her a once over. Calm your little ass down. He just, held a dead baby in his arms earlier today, and you're meeting him at the door with the baby saying you're done and you need a minute. How about join the team of this blue line family and get with the program? Maybe your husband needs a little more compassion from you. Maybe he needs a little more understanding. Maybe he needs a little bit more grace. Maybe he needs you to ask him, what can I do? How can I help? I get it. Maybe you stayed home and you've slaved over dinner and the kids, and I understand all of that. And you also have a husband that needs you. We need the home to be the sanctuary, the soft landing place. And oftentimes I see that that's not happening. At least, and you got to remember, I see my clients. I mean, I hear it in the classes that I teach too, but I see clients in their worst moments. They've probably been living in this unhealthy way for 10 years. And then they finally come to me and say, I need your help. So that's, my perspective is a little bit skewed because of what I see on a regular basis. But I do hear it in classes. I teach peer support, and I hear this from my peer supporters in training, that this is a challenge they come up against, is that, this constant conflict with their spouses. And honestly, I see that the base reason is because either the spouse doesn't understand or doesn't know how to be helpful, or the husband just completely keeps work out of family life, meaning She doesn't know what you experience because you don't tell her. She doesn't know that you're stressed because you don't tell her. She doesn't know that you held a dead baby because you don't tell her. Now, I get it. You want to protect her from all of that trauma exposure, but is there a way that you can protect her from some gruesome trauma exposure and include her in your life?
Sounds like this is how the big D word starts to develop.
Unfortunately, or misery, or, 35s. I mean, it happens.
What's 35s?
Oh, 1035 confidential side pieces. Is that? Oh, you don't know that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
the badge bunnies, the badge bunnies that are like, oh, how was your day? Oh, that must have been so hard. Tell me all about it. And the wife at home going, when are you going to fucking cut the grass?
I wonder if we deep dive into that a little bit. Mm-hmm. I have so many theories about relationships. I think I'm actually pretty fucking spot on with them too. Only because I'm a deep thinker and I come up with a lot of solutions. I wonder if the job itself puts more stress on a relationship that was probably never meant to be to begin with.
Well,
do you think honestly, that people really, do you think that you probably
Probably
see a lot of couples, I'd imagine. Do you see a lot of couples?
A lot of couples.
Okay. I mean, I've seen therapists myself, and I always pick therapist brains. I have friends that are therapists. I think where people go wrong a lot is that they settle.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go, wow, this is good enough. I just had this conversation earlier with somebody in here, and I could tell people it's a piece of advice that people might want to hear and digest and maybe apply to their life. God, it's so much easier just to whatever. I don't want to have the tough conversation. I'll get married. She's got a good job. He's got a good job. We'll have some kids. I guess this is about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
And that's a huge mistake. The
Absolutely.
best thing you can do is have those hard conversations of, hey, I don't think that you're the one I'm meant to be with.
Well, and it starts with having the hard conversations with yourself. Most people don't even know what the fuck they want. You know why? Because they've never done the work to ask themselves, what do I want? What do I need? What's important to me? I honestly didn't dial that in until I was 40. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. And I had to really get clear on what it is I need and want in a relationship. I didn't know what any of that was. And so I think most people just get into a relationship just thinking it's just going to work out and be fine. And it's fun now and we'll make it happen and we'll get along. And they don't really think about what their needs are and what's important to them and their values and this long-term view of the world and their life.
Yeah. I mean, you really should, I assume, find yourself first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's hard to find yourself in your early 20s, mid 20s, right?
Sure. And it's not a definitive find yourself. I think we're always finding ourselves. We're always becoming and improving and all of that. But it definitely starts with the initial curiosity of what's going to be important to me in a relationship. Yeah. Figure that out in your 20s or don't get married. Because if you don't know what you want, then why are you jumping into a marriage?
But my friends are getting married and I want to be like them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. I heard one of my friends who's a therapist who's been on the show many times, Hannah Heyman. She has said, you really need to find somebody that is going to grow with you.
Yes.
And as you change and mold, everybody's going to change and mold together.
100%. Find your growth-minded people. If you're a growth-minded person, some people are not. Some people are not growth-minded, and that's okay. But if you're growth-minded, find yourself a growth-minded person.
Yeah, no question about it. Because as you grow mentally, whatever it may be, significantly, I'll say that at its core, mental growth is probably what goes first, and everything else kind of follows physical growth. And I don't mean physical growth in a bad sense. I mean physical growth where you're improving your health and things like that. So it's mental first, and then physical. And some people don't want to go on that ride with you. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't really consume a lot of alcohol, and everybody does. I like that meme that says the only drug that you get made fun of for not doing is alcohol. I
know. It's really sad. And unfortunately, I had to end a relationship where alcohol was primary in his life. And I said, there's no room for me here. Alcohol is your first love, and I can't compete with that, and I won't compete with that. And I adore you, and I'm sad to lose you, but I can't do this.
And I often at times, because I am the one who is not drinking at
Yeah.
these events and whatever events I go. And again, I'm not saying I don't like drinking. I'm saying there's a time and a place in my life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
apparently every time and every place is for most people in their lives. Like
I know.
you have
Yeah.
kids, right? You ever go trick or treating and everybody's sucking down fucking
Yeah.
alcohol? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was this our prom night out? Like, what are we
Right.
doing?
I
That's just me,
know.
right? No, I guess I have a little bit of judgment, but I'm just like, yeah, we,
Yeah.
we are taking care of like 38 kids running in the street right now.
And
And your
you're
number one goal is
consuming
to, you're
a mood
handing
altering
flasks around,
substance. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's not appropriate. And I know we laugh about it and it's funny and all of it, people are laughing about it, but it's not, because if you think about it, that's really poor parenting, right?
Why do people in every sense of the word take every opportunity they can to drink
Mhm.
alcohol? What
I, I
causes that?
I mean, I think a lot of things. One, it's legal. Two, it's socially acceptable, and not even acceptable. It's like pressured,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's pressuring you. Like when you turn 21, it's a rite of passage to have a shot. I see that. And I don't mean to judge families that do this, but I'm always like shocked to be like, oh my God, you're taking your kid out to get drunk and he just turned 21. Yikes. All right. And the other piece of it is it works. It works
I get it.
to numb out what you don't want to feel. It works to separate you from the stress you're having. It works to sort of take the edge off of life and things, but it's a slippery slope because then that becomes habituated, right? I know that, after a long day of the kids crying and pulling at my apron or whatever, I can just throw some back and feel better. Well, then what happens to the rest of your evening? Are you present? Are you enjoying? Are you clear? Are you having good, healthy conversations and relationships? Probably not. You're probably checked out.
What's a better way to de-stress and take the edge off than sucking down beers?
Mm-hmm. I am a huge fan of meditation, and I don't mean meditation like sit on your butt and be quiet and clear your head. Like that's not accurate. Meditation is being mindful. So being very mindful and intentional with all the things in your life. So, and maybe I learned this part of parenting from being a part-time parent. So I only have had my daughter half of the time since she was 6, so I only get her 14, 15 days a month. And so those 14, 15 days a month, I was incredibly intentional. I didn't take 1 minute of that for granted. I'm not going to say 100% of the time. There were times I was checked out, but I recognize that I want to be present every day. I want to go outside and I want to gasp at the sky because it's so beautiful. I want to look in my kitchen and it's messy, but recognize how much abundance has caused that. Like my house is a mess because I have an abundant life. I have a lot of things and responsibilities and right. You only get one shot at parenting your kids, and they're going to turn 18, 19, whatever it is, and launch. And that's it. You only get one opportunity to develop this relationship with your kids. I remember when my son is 28 now, or about to be 28, but when he was 16, I panicked because I recognized my time with him was about done. And I wished that I had been much more intentional and present in his life. And, I tell new moms now, don't blink. Like, I know you're tired. I know you're worn out. I know the kids are driving you crazy. I know you're questioning, why do we have all these kids? But I promise you're going to blink and it's going to be over. Like, and find what calms you down. What does it for you? Is it stepping outside and getting some fresh air? Is it drinking some ice water? Is it taking a bath? It's what helps your nervous system come back to a baseline calm, this parasympathetic rest, digest, relate. What does that for you? And alcohol is just a Band-Aid and, frankly, an artificial way of doing that. We've got to find other ways to do that. I float. Float therapy is a really big part of my decompression, stress management. And I have found that it has lasting effect. It's not just the 1 hour in the deprivation tank. I'm square for a week, like, because that was exactly what my nervous system needed, my mind, I got my stuff straight. So I think people need to figure out what that is for them.
I want to float.
Oh my God, it's the best thing in the world. Now, but I always put a warning label on it. If you can't be quiet with your own thoughts for an hour, don't do it, because you'll freak out. Like, we got to prep you first. We got to get you prepared, because most people can't be alone with their thoughts. That's why the world is so damn busy. They can't stop, because if they stop, then they'll start thinking about all these things they don't want to think about. And if I put you in a deprivation tank and you didn't want to think about all those things that you're trying not to think about, they're all coming back. And now you're in this tank by yourself. So,
well, Deana, I would suggest you don't judge a book by its cover. And I'll have you know that I am a meditator, and I have been for almost 3 years.
I didn't mean you specifically. I meant sort of.
Oh, yes, you did. You looked at this man from New Jersey and said his bravado, his cockiness.
No, I could tell you were squared away, because you're calm, but you're also expressive. So it's not this like type A pent up, like holding it together, like, and the way you show up with your kids and all the things you shared. Anyway, you should try it. Try floating. Find a float tank area near you.
I'm going to go give it a shot.
It's amazing.
How has co-parenting impacted your daughter's life? How has it been for you guys? Has it been challenging? Yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah, of course it's been challenging. We've had, our times of disagreements, but, one thing we did from the very beginning is put her first, her needs first, all of her needs first. And I've watched it be difficult for her. I'm going to cry. Kids don't want to live separate. They want both parents in the same home, and as many times as we've, worked with her and said, please don't worry about my feelings or my emotions, because she'll say things like, well, I know dad misses me. And I'm like, honey, yes, of course, because he loves you a lot, but don't make that your problem to fix. I miss you when you're gone, but that's not your responsibility. I want you to go and have a wonderful time with your dad, and I'll see you in a week. But I've seen the effect on her. It's been hard.
What do you think the effects are?
She has said things like it feels like she doesn't have a home. Just, because she's always bouncing back. She said things like, I feel like I live out of a suitcase. As much as we have tried to duplicate everything, like, 2 pairs of Chucks, not just one, and 2 of her favorite shampoo. And we've tried to duplicate as much as possible to make that convenient. But now that she's older, she has her favorite stuff, and these are her favorite pair of jeans, and dang it, I left them at dad's. I got to go over there and get them. And thankfully we live close enough. We did that on purpose so that she can just sort of bop back and forth. But I've seen that be challenging for her. I think what has softened the challenge is how well we co-parent. We go to her sports events together. We go to, her choir performances together. Like, we did all of those things for her. But she made a comment the other night. We went out to dinner after her senior night. Like, senior night is a big deal here, like your last sports finale in your senior year. And so we all went out to dinner, her dad and her dad's girlfriend and the grandparents. And she said, I think this is the first time I've ever had dinner with both of my parents. And that hurt. Yeah.
Would it have been worse if you guys stayed together, though?
Probably. I mean, I would have, probably. I mean, I would have been sacrificing my needs. I would have, he probably would have too. It's not that there was fighting or abuse or anything like that going on. Could we have made a decent life together? And for her, probably. Yeah. But I'm not.
You two would have been miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to try to balance.
Yeah,
making the right decision.
Right. Oh gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't judge anybody for staying together for the kids, for instance, or, staying together because it's cheaper to keep her. I hear that one a lot. Man, knock yourself out. Like whatever works. If that is a peaceful, easy, enjoyable life, you go for it. I'm happy for you. But, I've heard the other end of it. Like, the parents stayed together for the kids, and then the kid turned 18 and the parents divorced, and the kid was devastated. They felt like their whole life was a lie. They said, wow, I had no idea my parents didn't like each other, or I knew they hated each other. And I wish they would have done this sooner. So is there ever a right time to divorce? No, of course not. Don't get married until you're not ever going to get divorced.
Even if you got married and you knew you'd not ever get divorced, are there any other variables that may get introduced into your life that could cause a divorce? I mean, significant life events, right? Of
course. Oh, gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Loss of a child, loss of a loved one, a significant OIS, all kinds of major stressors can really shake up a relationship. Most definitely.
I've told people when they ask me for advice, like, you really need to be sure that you're in love. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the sense of, I don't want to make it sound like a fairy, not a fairy tale thing. I'm like, this is my best friend. I don't look at anybody else. I obsess over this person.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get hard. Mm-hmm. And you start introducing kids, and there are major variables. And there are significant health risks when having children. People change. They change physiologically, psychologically, a lot of stuff that happens. And you've got to look at the person that you're with and say, can I love this person like I love my family? Like I love a brother or a sister that you genuinely love, because that's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, and it's not love, right? When it gets a little boring here, you've got to have that obsession. And I don't mean to sound like in a bad way. I don't mean obsessed where you got to put a GPS tracking device on your husband's car.
Yeah. Right.
I'm saying, like, you admire this person, and you feel just so very strongly that you love them, everything about them. And you got to be about. If
they're an extension of you, you wouldn't want to do anything to hurt them or you. If they are your person, your partner, an extension of you, half of your heart, you wouldn't go outside of that and seek elsewhere, or maybe you are, and it's just for the cheap thrill. That's another thing that I see with my first responders is they don't know how to manage this calm or shut down, boring. So they're seeking the thrill constantly, And so I'm like, shake up the damn marriage, like go to Vegas, like find it, start dating and courting your wife, start getting excited, like do weird, surprising things. Like you better start becoming best friends again. And it's funny because some marriages don't like that word, best friend. Like some guys, just the other day, one of a couple client of mine, and the guy said, I don't want my wife to be my best friend. I want her to be my wife. I know. Ooh. Well, and I think it's just a terminology thing. So yes, he wants her to do all the things he does, go fishing, hunting, all of those things. But he was sort of turned off by the thought of his wife being his best friend, because his best friend is, Manny, Mo, and Jack. Like he could. So I think it was just a semantics thing. Mm-hmm. So I got to be careful with that word. I just have to ask them, like, do you want your person, your wife, your partner to be your best friend? And what does that look like to you?
People have a very hard time distinguishing loving somebody and being in love with somebody. I mean, I love a lot of people, right? I love a lot of people.
I love a lot of people, but being in love, that romantic, that sexual, the attraction, all of that stuff, that's a very important component to a marriage as well.
People don't understand. They can't discern the two. And when I say things like this, acknowledging the truth, it pisses people off. Why? Why do you think it pisses people off?
They're not ready to confront it, or they don't want to believe it. No.
I get often criticized of like, you're being so mean. And I'm like, no, I'm just being truthful. Let's call it like it is.
Right.
I don't do it with the best. I mean, I'm very compassionate. I really am. I don't know. I guess maybe it's Maybe it's just where I'm from, how we talk to each other here.
Yeah. Yeah. I did learn that visiting New Jersey and New York early on. I remember I was in a pharmacy, and the cashier person was like screaming at this customer. And I was like, what is happening right now? And I walked up and I said, gosh, I mean, is everything okay? And she's like, that's just how we talk. And I was like, oh, God. It was super uncomfortable, but I've learned that
But there's a very big genuineness to that
huge.
here. You know, it's so funny. I will tell you this, as expensive as the state is, people leave and come back all the time, all the time. They go to beautiful places. Yeah. I have two friends that went to high school. Went to California, lived there for 17, 18 years. They're all back now.
Right.
They do it in Florida. They go back, they go to Florida, they go to South Carolina, they come right back.
Right.
And people say, well, why do they come back? It's so expensive and the weather. And it's the people.
And people need that. I mean, think about what that is underlying that. It is acceptance. It's, I see you, I hear you, I'm relating to you. It's real, it's genuine, it's authentic. And I think that's what people need more than anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. We're going to do this again, but let's wrap this up with a few pointers. And we're going to talk about personal relationships with your children and your spouses. So let's go over maybe 3 to 5 pointers of how to improve relationships, acknowledging what the job does to you so you can have a wonderful life.
Number 1, figure out what you need to decompress, to shake off the day and show up at home as the father, spouse that you want to be. Have regular date nights or days or times or weekend getaways or whatever, but regularly, like put it on the calendar, schedule it. Every Thursday night is my date with my wife, or, once a weekend, once a month on a weekend, we take off just the two of us. Dads, date your daughters. Please, for the love of God, date your daughters. Show them what it's like to be treated like a lady. Show them what a man is supposed to do for a lady. Have conversation with your kids. Ask them about their friends and their teachers and what they're doing and what they're learning, and involve yourself in their life. And don't parent like 100% of the time. If they're telling you about a story that happened at school, don't interject and say, well, that was wrong. Well, you shouldn't have done that. Or just listen. Please just listen to your kids. Show up like the man, the woman, the person that you want to be. Do you want to be seen as constantly angry and irritable and frustrated? And do you want to be seen as the couch potato that never leaves with the remote and a beer in your hand? Like, who do you want to be? And if you don't know how to get there to who you want to be, then figure it out. Listen to some podcasts, go to a therapist, talk to your chaplain, your pastor, whatever. Like find the person that you say, gosh, I really like what they do. I like how they show up with their family and their kids, and ask what they do, how to figure it out. How do they do it? I think that'll really go a significantly long way. And have conversations with your spouse about your work. Maybe not the gory details, not the trauma exposure piece, but how you were affected by it, how it felt, how you're doing with it now, how you wrap your head around all this stuff. Really share with them your life on the job so they know what it's like for you.
That was really good.
I hope so.
Where can they find you?
Well, I'm Cop Shrink on Instagram. Also, my company is called Above Board Consulting and Marriage Counseling Services. So aboveboardconsulting.com is my website. You can email me at copshrink911@gmail. That's how you can
just give out your home address and your cell phone number too.
Right.
And we'll need your social security as well.
Right. Those are the ways you can find me and get a hold of me if you want. Yeah.
It's awesome. This is great. Can you do it? Will you do it again with us?
Oh, 100%. I'd be honored. Absolutely. And I can't wait for Officer Ann and the third time with her, because she was my favorite guest. I really enjoyed
listened to my podcast.
I absolutely did. I'm not going to go on a podcast without knowing about your podcast.
Yeah, Ann Carazales is good.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah. And her recommendation for Stutz and Can't Hurt Me by Goggins. He has a new one, never finished. Amazing. Highly recommend.
Okay, you know, it's funny you bring this up. Ann texted me last week and said Goggins has a new book. And I sent her back a screenshot of me downloading on Audible because I have 3 credits that I haven't used. I forgot that I had them. I have the subscription on Audible because I was one of the coolest kids ever, and I am now an adult nerd.
I'm the same. I've had to stop getting in my head all the time because I'm constantly learning and growing. And my own therapist is like, you get out of your head, get into your body. So that's why float therapy has been amazing. It's a great combination. Cool. Yeah,
that's cool, man. It's good. It's awesome. And it's nice to meet you. And this has been a wonderful time.
Pleasure.
And I think maybe next episode, we'll talk about dental tips and hygiene related to having perfect fucking teeth.
Oh my gosh. All right. I'm happy to share.
Appreciate you being here. Guys, if you're in an area where you're trying to get to our classes, but we're not close to you, fret not. We actually have on-demand training at streetcop.com. You can take that course online right now, and then you could attend that training in the future at no additional cost. You can redeem your voucher, so you get 2 for the price of 1. We don't want to deny you the ability to take this training now, especially knowing that it can keep you safe at a very minimum, putting bad guys in jail where they belong, and at the maximum going home to your family. Check out streetcop.com for that offer.